Hey, good evening and welcome to Fish Hunt Northwest. So glad you could join us this evening. Duane Inglin and the crew, Kelly Barnum, who basically just walked in and sat down. Coach Barnum this time of year, so you never know when he's going to show up. But so far, he has made it just before the bell each week.
On time.
So, on time.
Now I'm getting really good at changing.
Driving like a banshee, I'm sure, yeah. So Tommy Edson back in studio with us again this week. And of course, David's sitting over there in IT corner doing a fantastic job making sure this whole thing clicks. We'll be joined later, of course, in the kitchen with Chef Kelly Lance O'Neill and his lovely assistant Sherry with another recipe of the week. I believe, if I heard him right, he's doing something with some of those whitetail steaks that you had dropped off a couple weeks ago. So they'll be cooking that up in the kitchen later on. Look forward to that. Fish Hunt Northwest, presented by Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate Pacific Commons, located in Puyallup, Washington. We appreciate all their support in getting this show off the ground. Of course, you are joining us tonight. This is kind of a milestone for us, boys. We are actually via YouTube and, of course, Facebook. So whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, we got the messenger up and going here. You can chime in, chat away, post your messages, post your complaints, yell at us. We don't care. Just get involved, all right? So follow us via our YouTube channel this evening or Facebook, and let us know where you're watching from. That would be great. And of course, take some time to jump over to our YouTube channel and subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also follow us all week long. We are on, of course, our Instagram. Right. Pretty active there, and we are especially active on our Facebook page with posting lots of pertinent information, articles. Recipes of the week are now going to be broken out each week via the recipe and the video. We're going to put that up for you, and if we can get something accomplished in the bait lab that's worth repeating, we'll show that out as well. So plenty to follow us on Facebook, that's for sure. And we appreciate you taking our content, spreading it around so other folks can enjoy it as well. With that, what have you guys been up to this week? Anything exciting? Anybody get outdoors? Anybody do anything?
No?
Baseball. Work. Yeah, and we got some weather coming. You're going to get into that later on, right? We got some definite weather coming.
Things are changing.
Yeah. I was fighting I'm already sweating. I apologize. This is going to be a tough show for me to get through. I've been fighting that flu thing all week, and it's kicking my butt. So, fantastic opportunity tonight. We have a special guest coming in studio. Join us later, Jason Phelps of Phelps Game Calls. If you haven't heard of him, you've been living under a rock. So Jason will join us later. We're going to talk all that is turkey and a little bit more later on the show. He's got a lot of things going on. New building, new series of calls coming out, whole bunch of great information, but he's going to walk us through some basics relative to turkey hunting, which the three of us will partake in later on here this season after you get done with your baseball schedule.
Right.
So once Coach Barnum is done, Outdoorsman Barnum can rejoin the team, and we're going to get out and chase our turkeys. It'll be later in the season, so if you guys do get out in the following week after the opener and are successful with getting your birds, make sure you post those photos up on our Facebook page, because we're going to live vicariously through everybody else until we actually get boots on the ground and go chase some turkeys. But before we get there, we'll spend some time this evening with Jason Phelps. We're going to talk calls, we're going to talk early scouting, where to find birds, talk a little bit about east side versus west side. We're going to talk about, obviously how to call them in.
Hey, I'm excited for that conversation because I'm not a big turkey hunter.
Right.
I mean, I love elk hunting, I love deer hunting, but turkey's kind of been something that I've always been like,
Yeah.
You know, and I've had lots of people tell me, hey, calling in a turkey is just as exciting as calling in a bull elk. I think Jason's going to try to change my mind on that, but I mean, I'm excited because I know I can learn a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they're a pretty smart little creature.
Yeah.
Right? And their eyesight is second to none. So you don't have to worry about them winding you, but you certainly have to worry about them seeing you, which can be pretty difficult at times depending on how you're setting up, right? So
for sure.
Tommy and I got out last year. We had a great couple days, although the weather was not conducive to turkey hunting. We had everything Mother Nature could throw at us within 3 days. You know, it was nice when we had the sun for 3 minutes, but other than that, it was pelting hail on us sideways, 25-mile-an-hour winds. It was brutal.
Sounds like spring.
Yeah, sounds like spring.
Yeah, a rain squall come through and drench us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was tough. The birds weren't active. It was cold. It was different. It was almost, we were not successful really in calling any of them in. We were more of a spot and stock kind of a deal and worked that program. We ended up getting a couple birds. Well, Gunner there did. I was the flusher, but it worked out, right? And one of those capes is hanging on the wall here in the studio. So
any way you can get a bird on the ground.
It was a good time. We had a lot of fun chasing those birds around. It was a great way to spend a few days in the spring to go do something that involves hunting and calling And if you're doing that in combination of, you're getting better in both facets, right? So anyway, we'll get Jason in here later on the show, and we got a lot of information to cover. Make sure you stay tuned because he is very, very in-depth in his information. So with that, guys, lots of stuff going on around the Puget Sound, Northwest, and beyond. I had the opportunity to speak with Art Tashel down at Point Defiance Marine and Boathouse yesterday, get an updated report. Area 11's fishing pretty well.
Oh, good.
As far as the fishing report goes. If you're following on social media at all, you can see that Area 9 is definitely popping out some fish here as of late. Blackmouth fishing up there seems pretty good. Standard stuff going on. There's a few of the guide outfits and whatnot are definitely putting fish in the boat, and some other folks are having success as well. But with that, Area 11 down there around Tacoma, whatnot, the jiggers are getting most of the work done. You know, he says guys are picking up a few fish on the troll. Jigging is getting it done out in front of the clay banks and whatnot as per usual. Typically where guys are getting that program underway. 150 foot to 200 foot of water, about 10 feet off the bottom. Got a soft incoming tide. You can get away with about a 4-ounce jig. He says if you got that hard outgo, you're going to have to switch up to maybe that 6-ounce jig to keep a vertical presentation. But definitely want to use glows and UVs. He says, you know, glow jig with greenback, and of course white. You can never go wrong with white, especially if it has UV on it.
Right, especially at that depth.
Especially at that depth. You know, 0 to no light down there, so you got to use something that's going to stand out. But yeah, they're, you know, again, half a fish to 1 fish per rod. The trollers are getting them, but man, if you're going to go out there, I'd follow that fleet of boats and kind of, you know, figure out what they're doing, get that jig going on. And I like jigging for Chinook out in the Sound. It's a good time. That program there differs greatly from Area 13. We got some spots out here up on some flats in Area 13. Now, speaking of the early fall Chinook, you know, you're fishing out there in August, but gosh, we were finding fish last year at 35 to 40 foot of water. Well, which when you're jigging, that's pretty nice. Pretty nice, huh, Tommy?
Yeah, man.
Versus trying to run that jig at 150 to 200 feet. So, but you know, those fisheries will continue in through the summer. Right now, the blackmouth fish, and then once we start getting, gosh, I'm also looking forward to that September-ish time we start getting those resident coho fishing going on up there. You know, Area 10 and whatnot again. So that was productive last year. No reason why this year it's not going to be as productive. Read some early reports that would indicate that that's going to crank up pretty early. So actually June. So that's kind of your area Puget Sound report relative to Area 11, Area 9. You know, things are happening. I think when we look at the weather later, though, you're going to be a little surprised at what's going to be. It's not going to be a good weekend to be out there. We got some stuff coming on. But, hey, there was some info here the last few days looking back at the progress that's been made relative to the euthanization of those sea lions in that Willamette Falls area, Barnum. And it's pretty impressive how fast the numbers are jumping relative to these steelhead that are showing up. What do you got going on with that?
So to get you caught up, in November, ODFW got permission from the federal government to basically capture and euthanize sea lions near Willamette Falls. Talking to some local fishermen in that area today, kind of making some phone calls and trying to get kind of the sense of what it's like down there. You know, how aggressive are these sea lions? Where are they at? How many are there? Are these numbers that we're seeing that the agency put up, are they accurate? The agency put up that, you know, on average there's between 50 to 100 sea lions hanging out around the falls. So I made some phone calls, and the people that I talked to felt like maybe that number was actually maybe a little high.
Really?
Which kind of surprised me. They said, you know, I don't necessarily know that there's that many, and that you can get an accurate count because they're up and down so much that it's hard to really get an accurate count. They felt like that maybe they're counting some of those sea lions twice.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the guys told me that 7-8 years ago, they felt like fishing in and around the falls and below the falls that the sea lions became so accustomed to fishermen hooking fish and being able to take them from the fishermen that they felt like 8 out of 10 fish that were hooked were somehow either bitten by a sea lion or shook off by a sea lion, you know, because of the way you had to fight them.
Sure.
He felt like that fishermen had made a lot of changes in techniques that kind of helped curb that number. A lot more hazing by fishermen, you know, throwing rocks at the sea lions, stuff like that.
Paintballs.
Trying to chase them away.
Slingshots.
Right. Trying to keep the sea lions away from their fish. So he said he felt like that had moved a lot of the fish, or a lot of the sea lions, from kind of hovering a more wide area to going directly to the fish ladder and setting up.
Oh.
And he feels like that's why we were seeing the massive predation.
So it's a response from the sea lions.
Yeah.
To based on the activity, we were forcing them kind of to hover in an area.
Right, and they're an incredibly smart animal.
Well, they're trainable.
Right.
I mean, pinnipeds are in a circus for a reason. I've always said they're like a dog. They have a memory, and once they learn a skill, they don't forget. They pass it on to their pups. So yeah, valid point.
ODFW steps up and they go, okay, we got a problem here. We have fish we need to protect. The ESA listed steelhead out of the Willamette River, and even I think the Chinook runs. I think if I'm remembering this right.
Yeah.
Anyway, they stepped in and said they had to do something. They petitioned the federal government. The federal government said, yeah, sure. You know, you guys can kill up to 93. You know, which is a big number.
Within a year?
I don't remember if that's within a year, but that was the number.
I remember reading some reports it was percentage based.
Right.
But within a year's time. So either way.
Right.
So there's a number that they said they're authorizing for removal. Okay.
And so they started with the process, and they pretty quickly killed 11. And
now this is in Willamette Falls area specifically.
Yes, they were specifically targeting the sea lions that frequent the fish ladder at Willamette Falls.
Right.
And they pretty quickly euthanized 11 of them. And basically at that point they stopped for a little bit because they noticed that at least for a 6-day period, all sea lions in and around the falls left.
Yeah.
So that's how smart they are and how intelligent they are. They figured out, like, wait a minute.
Hey, we're losing this war all of a sudden.
This isn't good.
Retreat.
And they literally left.
Right.
The cool part about this, and what kind of proves that this is working, as soon as they started doing the hazing and the euthanization, the fish counts over the falls started to increase. And in the 6 days that the sea lions were gone, they didn't see any sea lions, that number went to triple digits.
Right.
That quick.
Yep.
So then the sea lions came back, and then he made the decision to euthanize 2 more. And at that point right now, that's where they're at. They've euthanized 13 sea lions. Now they're only killing California sea lions.
And understand, they trap them.
Right.
And there's a whole host of rules. You know, they have to be recognized as a problematic sea lion. Previous activity had been seen eating salmon or steelhead at the falls. I mean, there's like a punch list, right? That these fish have to fall, or these sea lions have to fall within. And if they meet that criteria and they trap them, they can haul them away and they euthanize. I mean, like you said, they're up to 13 now.
Right.
What's that done to the fish numbers over the falls?
The fish numbers have been on a pretty aggressive upswing. Like, really, I mean, I think you have those numbers there in front of you, Duane.
So, actually, prior to any intervention, in 2017, they had 822 steelhead.
Right.
That made it, over the fall, and that they could document. Last year, without any intervention, they were able to get 1,829. This year, and most of this, a high percentage of this has been since they've removed these 11 and then ultimately this last couple of weeks, 13 sea lions.
Right.
They have more than 2,400 that have made it now, and the projection is to hit 3,200.
Right.
So almost doubles within a short window. This part of the season, towards the latter part of the season, short window, the fish return, the fish counts almost double.
Right.
That right there, for me, Barnum, paints a picture that this predation issue would seem to be significantly more devastating than people actually think.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
That's just 13.
Right.
In a given area. Now, keep in mind, it's a man-made barrier that forces all the fish to congregate in a select area, and those things kind of sit there. And it's kind of like when we run plugs down a river. We're putting out the wall of death. Well, the sea lions are basically the wall of death. And those fish got to swim right into their mouths, and they're going to eat as much and as often as they can. But it shows you the sheer numbers that they're
and it shows
consuming.
that management is effective in the sense that if we look at 2017 with 822 fish, and now we jump forward 2 years, who would have thought in that 2-year period that we would take that number and we would increase it by 300% and go to 3,200 fish returning? I mean, that's a remarkable turnaround when you're dealing with an ESA listed species.
On a season that, for the most part, for Washington, Oregon, has been on the downturn.
Right.
Yeah.
Overall, steelhead season's been tough in a lot of systems, a lot of systems both up and down the coast of Washington, Oregon. Right? We've had a pretty tough year relative to steelhead fishing, but now you take a specific river, and you have a number as your comparable was in 2017, and you've done nothing other than remove a predator
right.
at a certain point,
right.
and it's almost increased by 300%. Yeah. Tommy, do you have something?
Well, I was going to say basically in more or less words what you just said. That, on such a poor projected year, with springers and winter steelhead, everything's kind of just been in the gutter. To see that gives me a little bit of hope and gives me a little bit of enthusiasm that maybe, we'll set a precedence with this.
Well, I think it's going to be hard for anybody to look at these numbers and say, this, some of the maybe Humane Society groups, stuff like that, look at this and go, this isn't working. Killing these sea lions is a terrible idea. You guys can't do that. They're going to have a hard time looking at protecting
Factual
an ESA-listed
numbers.
species and having the science to back it up that it's working. Yeah. And that's why I feel like this is so important.
Yeah. Well, there's an imbalance.
Yeah.
And it's a man-created imbalance. The feds protected sea lions years ago, way back in the 90s, and I just don't ever remember reading a report or having anybody step forward and say, here is the carrying capacity threshold. We hit this number, we're good. They will continue to breed, they'll continue to keep their population at this level. If they're at this number, they're sustainable and we're good. Right. And they don't threaten the food chain down below, so to speak. But nobody's ever come out and said that. They just they put a protection on them and just let it go. As we've discussed before, once things are ESA listed, it's very difficult to get it removed.
Right.
Yeah. I'm curious as to where this goes with the spring Chinook season coming to full steam, if you will, with removing these sea lions and see how those numbers fluctuate.
Well, Willamette has a pretty decent, I say decent as far as this forecast overall is concerned. But
comparatively speaking.
Yeah, so we'll see actually what ends up happening there specific to Willamette. Right?
You said there was 90 of them they were allowed to shoot?
I think it was 93 if I remember my numbers right. But But kind of another interesting tidbit here is they're only authorized to euthanize California sea lions. They're not authorized to do the larger stellar sea lions. And what they're actually finding out is the stellars don't seem to prey on the salmon and steelhead as much. They seem to be focusing on sturgeon, which is a whole nother topic we can talk about later. But I mean, they're really seeing sturgeon numbers start to decline in that area because the stellars have learned to harvest the large mature sturgeon so well that this is a problem we're going to have to deal with in the future too. So
there's videos all over YouTube where you can watch those big sea lions, dragging an oversized sturgeon around up by Bonneville even.
It's concerning. Well, we'll continue to follow that because that's kind of setting precedents on positive results when they finally take action and remove them. Now we have several other areas that they need to focus on. Lower Columbia, obviously Puget Sound is one that they have a lot of extensive work to do. They still have to justify via the research and the studies and the reports to say, this is a problem. Well, it's already been proven it's a problem. The harbor seal is the one consuming all the outbounding smolt, and then you have your other California sea lions and whatnot that are consuming, returning adults. So it's a huge problem, and this basically is starting to finally, within a short amount of time, kind of sets the stage here to say, this obviously shows that maybe we are heading in the right direction in regards to this. So we'll continue to follow it, but lots going on in that regard. Tommy, there was another mountain lion encounter that I was reading about this last week.
Yeah.
Kind of concerning. There was a small child or something involved, and a mother fighting off a small cat. You and I got to talking about it. Gosh, it's like there seems to be a handful of these that have happened within the last 6 months to a year, whereas previously you might hear about an encounter every so often. Yeah. But this is becoming pretty commonplace. What's going on in that?
The situation that you and I talked about was up in British Columbia, our neighbors up north. Yep. Particularly Vancouver Island. And that's the second one in the last couple of weeks. There was a video that kind of went sort of viral online about a guy being followed by one. It was actually a pretty cool video. But it was not real graphic, but it was very alarming. Yeah. And if you go back a year, it was May of last year when Washington, when someone was killed up in North Bend by a mountain lion.
North Bend or Issaquah area?
It was up in the North Bend area.
Yeah,
it was up in the North Bend area.
Yeah,
I believe it was in May, right around the middle of May.
Okay. Yep.
You go out 2 months from there or 3 months from there. Last summer, sometime someone was killed in the Mount Hood area of Oregon. And that was Oregon's first documented fatality from a mountain lion.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's their first one.
Okay.
That was the first one in Washington in 94 years.
Right.
since that time, they've kind of just stayed in the news about, people having run-ins with them. It was less than a month ago, and there was somebody was walking their dog on a beach north of Hoodsport, and there was a dog, and their dog was killed by one.
Dog got attacked,
Yeah. So it's like, I kind of wrap my head around this whole thing, and I think is it you hear a lot of the user groups say, oh, well, we're just kind of impeding and intruding on their, as the urban sprawl, for lack of a better word, moves out into the country, we're kind of going to have to deal with stuff like this. And to some extent, that's 100% true.
Well, there's a lot to that.
There definitely is.
Absolutely.
There definitely is. There's also other, it's kind of compounding factors, though, I feel like. Most people that spend a lot of time in the outdoors and have talked to people who do this, and this is their area of expertise, and especially in science, know that like a male lion has basically domain over this X amount of square miles or a couple of square miles, whereas, a litter of kittens will come born, hit adolescents that are males, and they'll have to make their own square mile. Well, it isn't a whole lot of time before you got urban sprawl coming from one side and lions coming from the other.
Lions trying to find their own area, right?
And it's going to have, overlap. And I feel like on top of that, there's just more people in the woods. We have hikers, we have mountain bikers, which is what happened last year up in North Bend. More than ever before, people are using the resource. And
you got shed hunters, you got mushroom collectors, you got gatherers, you have people going out and getting different types of flowers. You have the outdoors as a resource being utilized by persons of all walks of life, not just hunters, right?
For which it should.
Absolutely. Yeah. But urban sprawl is an issue.
100%.
Modern engineering has made it possible to put houses affixed on ledges and areas where you would never build a home previously, right? Sure. So people that have enough money to go off and do that are finding themselves living amongst the critters in the woods. The footprint of the woods is getting smaller. The populations of cats has increased. We removed the opportunity to hunt cats with dogs. So last time I checked, we as humans don't do very well in chasing after mountain lions and treeing them so we can shoot them.
That's a lot of what we have going on is we've definitely decreased our predator management drastically.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And one thing that I think has happened is as that predator population has exploded, it's pushed a lot of the prey, the deer, the elk, small animals like that.
Absolutely.
It's pushed them into the suburbs because it's a safer place to live.
Right.
If you're around humans, you don't tend to be threatened as much, especially in some of the suburbs in the metro areas where you're not allowed to hunt.
Where some of our biggest blacktail are killed.
And it's right.
They live among us, right?
And it's easy feeding in the landscapes and around fence lines and stuff like that. So,
you bet.
So it's easy. And so, of course, if the prey moves, the predators will follow.
They have to.
You're going to have more and more encounters if this happens until we learn that, expecting to manage a predator population by just happen chance wandering through the woods and harvesting one when I see it, if I'm ready, isn't effective. It's not effective.
It's not effective. And even for guys that are purchasing over-the-counter mountain lion tags when they're out hunting other things, and if they see one, they're going to shoot it. We don't have a lot of guys having success just going, I'm going mountain lion hunting, and I'm going to go find me a mountain lion, I'm going to shoot it. Because, again, we're trying to hunt a predator. And we're just not that good at it. Now, you bring dogs back into the mix, you're going to have a much higher success rate. Because you're going to start treeing cats, you're going to be able to shoot them like they used to.
Absolutely. You're going to have user groups using it specifically for that reason. That's what they do. Houndsmen. I had lots of friends that did it when I went out.
Again, I don't know what in Washington State is recognized as the threshold of when they say we have enough or too many cats. I don't know what that number is. I don't know. But
the time's coming. I mean, we all said this back in what was it, 96 when they passed that initiative and stuff. We all said that the time will come. Well, they'll need us again.
I just realized.
20 years? Is it 30 years? Is it 40 years? But the time is coming.
Last week we talked about wolves. And towards the end of the show, if we have time, I'm going to throw some numbers at you that I picked up on today. I was reading another article. But, wolves are in the news, cats are in the news, pinnipeds are in the news. It's all predation. It's all relative to management of our resource. It's all relative to management of our wild game and whatnot. And yet we keep having these discussions, and they come up, and they're in the news, and more so than they were 10 years ago. And it's cats, it's wolves, and it's pinnipeds. And if we're not careful, before too long, it could be bears.
And we're not, like I said, we don't do a really great job in the Pacific Northwest managing our predators. No. And you can put a tinfoil hat on or whatever, but a lot of people believe that that's on purpose. you know,
a lot of conspiracy theories out there, right?
A lot of people believe that we don't manage our predators in a sense to keep our big game numbers down to make hunting a harder activity.
Right.
I mean, that's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole other topic that ties in with who's running our government in this state and all those things. We're not going to get into that because that's a scary topic right there. So, all right, that's going to wrap that up. We're going to jump out for a commercial break. We come back, we're actually going to be in the bait lab, and we're going to go through the process of curing up some coon shrimp. It may seem a little early or off time to cure coon shrimp, but if you want to get them ready for summer on steelhead, which we look forward to that June opener, this is the perfect time to get your frozen, uncured coon shrimp. Get them cured up, get them in your fridge, let them kind of stew for a couple months. So ultimately, when you go to fish them early summer, they have phenomenal color, they have durability, and they have great scent. We're going to show you how to do all that and more right here on FHM when we come back.
At the break of night, the pink skies waving goodbye. She come out at break of night, leaving no traces around. She's trying to free a reckless heart. She's trying to be as light as the breeze. Queen of art, Friday morning. The queen of art, Friday morning. She come out to break the night. Let's create as always. You come out to break the night, you'll be wearing her charm so frail. Yeah, she's trying to avoid everyone. Even the battle for peace. The queen of art, Friday morning. The queen of art, Friday morning.
Hey, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We are here in the bait lab, and today we're going to talk about curing up coon shrimp. And as I mentioned before the break, we're curing coon shrimp now so that they will be ready for your summer steelhead, which is only a couple months away with that June opener. Coon shrimp are an interesting little shrimp to utilize. They work fantastic for summer steelhead, but you know, they work really well for sockeye. If you get a sockeye opportunity, say up at Baker Lake or over in Brewster, they work fantastic for that. I've caught fall coho on them. I've caught spring and fall Chinook on them. I've caught chum. Almost everything that swims in our anadromous fisheries, the coon shrimp will work. But ideally, I like to cure them up and get them ready for summer steelhead. And I'll also, given enough time, will show you how I like to rig them and fish them off a bait diver. You can also fish them under floats. They're very versatile in how you present them when it comes to fishing for steelhead especially. So a lot of folks ask where you can get them. And now we're talking about finding and getting our hands on some good quality coon shrimp, coon striped shrimp, pink shrimp, whatever you want to call them. There's a number of different species in the realm of pink and coon shrimp. And these ones are from raised baits. And if you're in Washington, Oregon, you can actually find these uncured, blanch boiled. So the important part here is that these have been pre-cooked. These are blanch boiled, and that gives them the firmness and the toughness that you really need as far as making a durable bait. What we're doing is when we're curing them, it's almost as if you're pickling them. And the process that I use sets you up for success in that these things will last in your bait fridge or the fridge in your kitchen if your wife lets you for a very long time. Matter of fact, this jar that I have sitting here right in front of me, the date on top of here is 7/25/14. I had forgotten about this jar. It was in the back of my bait fridge, got kind of pushed to the back. It was behind jars that I had dated from 016 and 17. So this jar is actually from 14, and these ones that I'll show you how we're gonna rig later on actually are from 2014, believe it or not. And they're still extremely durable, very good color, smell great. They don't mold, they don't deteriorate, they just sit in the brine and do a really nice job. So we wanna find good quality shrimp. You can get them at Raised Baits. They supply Sportco locally here. You can find them down there at Sportco. You can also get them at Cabela's, you can get them at Dick's, you can get them at Sportsman's, I believe, is where you can get them in Washington, Oregon, as far as finding coon shrimp. East Coast and other parts of the nation, you just got to kind of shop around. Get online, look for frozen, uncured coon shrimp or pink shrimp and see what you can come up with. If you find a good vendor that gives a quality shrimp that's been blanched, boiled, and frozen, you're in the ballpark. That's the type of shrimp you want to look for. The recipe we're doing is in a quart jar. Now, I have the fortunate opportunity to get these plastic jars from Potskis, which works out well. You can use glass jars, nothing wrong with that. I just don't like using glass jars in the boat in the event that they were to roll around and break. But, you know, if you're careful, you're going to be fine. So this is a quart jar recipe that I basically through trial and error came up with several years ago. I've been using it for a number of years, and I can assure you there are a number of guides throughout the Pacific Northwest that use this exact recipe because it flat out produces. Not to mention it again makes a very durable bait that's going to last. Some folks say, well, it seems like you have a lot of products that it takes to simply cure some coon shrimp. Yeah, there are 3 or 4 of the Potski products you need to use, but you're using very little per jar that you cure. Also, when you buy a box of 2 pounds of frozen coon shrimp, you're going to get about 3 or 4 quart jars of cured shrimp out of it. So dollar-wise, if you price out what it costs to buy cured coon shrimp, if you take the time to do this recipe yourself, you're going to find that in the long run, you're not only saving money, but you're creating something that you get to take out and fish. And when everybody else is fishing the store-bought version, you're fishing something that you've created on your own. So, and I'll talk a little bit about changing up the scent in different types of cures that you can do. So basically, the number one factor with this is that we're using the Potski's nectar, okay? Potski's nectar is simply egg juice. This is from when they cook down the trout eggs at the factory. They capture all that juice and they strain it, and then they bottle it up because there's a lot of value in using this egg juice in a number of different recipes and also along with your egg cures and things. But one thing to think about is that in a lot of our fisheries, when you couple shrimp with eggs or egg scent, it has some type of attractive power to it that fish really respond to. Think about when we're fishing spring Chinook. We're using, most cases, a cocktail, a glob of eggs and some sand shrimp. Fall salmon, I'll do the same thing. I use some eggs and some sand shrimp. For steelhead, I'll take my eggs and I might put some sand shrimp oil, some of Mike's sand shrimp oil on the eggs. In other words, there's been plenty of opportunity and proven over time that an egg shrimp combination works very well. And through trial and error over the years, I basically started using the nectar as my base for my coon shrimp recipe. So we got some egg juice in there. And then of course the other liquids that we're going to add, I have the new fire dye, which is a very strong coloring agent that we're going to add. So I'm going to put in a tablespoon of the dark red fire dye, which is going to add a tremendous amount of color to your mix. Another thing I like to use, steelhead are attracted to sweet baits more oftentimes than not. So this will be a combination of salts and sugars, but as far as adding additional sweetness, we use this agave or guave or agave or however you want to pronounce it. I talked to multiple people and they say, call it what you want. I put in a full-on rounded tablespoon of the agave just because it's like a sweetening syrup and it does a real nice job adding an extra sweetness to your brine. Okay, so that's pretty much the liquids, except for I'm going to go with some anise oil. 100% anise is something that steelhead are drawn to, and the combination in this mixture with this shrimp, and we're going to put in 10 to 15 drops. Okay, that goes in. So that's pretty much all your liquid components. We'll put in our dry components now. We'll add the shrimp and then we'll top off with some more liquid as we get done with that. So basically this is a combination of salts and sugars. We're going to put in some of the Potski's Firepower krill powder along with that just to add extra shrimp scent. And we'll also put in some of the Potski's Fire as it's a great curing agent as well. Now again, you're buying these products, but we're only using a small amount. We're using, a tablespoon of the fire dye. We're going to use 2 tablespoons or 1 of the Firepower krill powder, and we're going to use a 1/4 cup of the Fire. As far as salts and sugars, I'm using refined white sugar. We're going to also use some natural or washed raw sugar because it's extremely sweet. We're going to use a 1/4 cup of the non-iodized sea salt, if you can find that. And we're also going to use a 1/4 cup of rock salt. So I put in smaller granulars and I put in larger granulars of dry components. Reason for that is I've realized over time that the smaller components break down nice and early and start getting into the meat of the shrimp. And over time, say a couple months, as this sits in your fridge, those larger components begin to break down. Eventually, all this breaks down within the amount of liquid that you put in the jar, and all of it is absorbed into the meat of the shrimp. And that's what you want. You don't want to put so much dry product in here that at the end of it, a couple months, 6 months down the road, you still have a lot of product and debris sitting in the bottom of your jar. With all this stuff going in at basically a 1/4 cup, 1/4 cup of the salt, 1/4 cup of the rock salt, 1/4 cup of the refined sugar, 1/4 cup of the raw sugar, and a 1/4 cup of the Fire, you basically put in the right amount of components that 60 to 80, depending on the size of the shrimp, 60 to 80 shrimp in your jar over time, couple months, will absorb all those components. So we're going to dump in a 1/4 cup of the salt. Okay. We're going to dump in a 1/4 cup of the rock salt. This is pretty difficult. Here we go, a 1/4 cup of the refined sugar. Again, they like it sweet. Here's that washed raw sugar, larger granule. It kind of looks like brown sugar. It's even larger granule than brown sugar. It's extremely sweet, and steelhead definitely like it sweet. So we're going to dump in a 1/4 cup of that raw sugar, and that definitely over time breaks down and is completely absorbed. We're going to dump in a 1/4 cup of the dark red, some might call it purple, but the dark red Fire. Try not to inhale all that. And 1 to 2 tablespoons of our Firepower krill powder. Okay? There we go. Essentially, that is it right there. I'm going to shake that around a little bit because I realize I forgot my long-handled spoon. That's pretty much all the components right there. So now I simply take my shrimp. Now the nice thing is when you purchase these shrimp in a 2-pound box, they come in a Ziploc bag. You can dump them out on the counter and you can sort through them and kind of pick out ones that match evenly as far as size. If you get a bunch of them that are on the smaller side, you want to separate those out and set them off to the side and cure those in a jar all together so you have similar sizes. I like to use the bigger, medium-sized ones for steelhead and larger fish such as coho and whatnot. And I'll take those smaller ones and I'll fish those for the smaller sockeye, say over at Brewster or even some of the sockeye up at Baker Lake when we get an opportunity up there. So I like to sort them before I cure them. And then after we have everything mixed in the jar, all you have to do is drop these buggers right into here, okay? So I'm going to quickly dump all these in here. I think I counted out about 70 of them or so. Looks like there's probably room for all of that. So go with that there. Now you can try different things. You know, I used to make some batches with vanilla versus the anise oil. So that is 70 of them in there. I actually got room for more than that, but that's going to do for now. The other thing we want to make sure we do is put a date on my jar. So today is 4/4/19. I think I did the math correct. We'll put that on there. Okay. The other thing we want to do is top this off. I'll use a little bit more of the nectar to make sure I have plenty of liquid in there. The other thing I could do, I could use 1 full bottle of nectar, and I could also use the fire brine, the red fire brine. Nothing wrong with adding that. That is a bait cure that works very well. Again, I'm just trying to add more liquid to my jar so that I make sure all the shrimp are submerged in the liquid, okay? So you don't want to fill it clear to the top. I got to have some room in here to twist this around. So you can see all the stuff is compacted on the bottom. So I need to simply kind of shake this down a little bit, kind of get that stuff working off the bottom there and get it mixing up. Now, this won't all disappear overnight. This doesn't absorb overnight. So what you need to do is make sure you get this mixed up very thoroughly. And then I like to set these jars in my refrigerator on their side. It doesn't compact down onto the bottom of the jar so much if it's on its side, and it's easier to get it to come off the side of the jar than the bottom. And every day, at least once or sometimes twice a day for the first couple weeks, believe it or not, I will go out into my bait room and I simply take this and rotate it over several times to make sure the ingredients are getting mixed up. The other thing you want to ensure is that all your shrimp are curing equally. They're all getting really good color throughout the entire jar. They're all getting the scent dispersed on them evenly. And we're creating every shrimp in there to fish basically the same and have the same color, okay? So I let it sit on the side. I let that go for a couple weeks, turning it daily until you start seeing these products end up absorbing into there, all right? And at the end of it, a month down the road, I'm not going to have any product in the bottom of this jar on the side. And when I see that most of that is absorbed and gone, I just store it in the fridge on the bottom like that, and it's no longer an issue. That's the basic recipe that gets you a quality shrimp. Again, this one that's in my hand right now is from 2014. It's still very durable. It's not soft. The carapace is still in good form, and it's a nice firm shrimp, got good color, good scent. The jar's not moldy or anything like that. So let's talk about a rigging on how we like to fish those. So for the most part, I like to fish these on a bait diver. And you can use whatever size you want. It depends on the depth of your river. Summertime lows, typically I'll use a medium size Brad's bait diver, or you can get the Magnum, depending on how deep you need to go. But it's easy to switch out if you use a snap, a locking snap on the end of your main line there. So I rigged that on a bead chain because if that line comes in contact with the front edge of that diver, it's definitely going to cut your line. So you want to protect it. Typically, it's not going to be out the front of it like that, but if a fish turns the other way and things happen, it can definitely cut through. So I like to use that rolling bead chain on the front of that. I'm going to tie that to about a 5-foot leader off my diver. And this particular rig is a little rig that I've been fishing for a number of years. My dad actually came up with the straw concept. It doesn't matter what you put in front of it. Sometimes you put simply a corky, sometimes you run nothing at all. Sometimes I run a little smile blade on top of a couple beads. Basically, it's up to you. Spin and glows work very well. I have a number of different options here on this leader roll that I can utilize. Spin and glows, smile blade, some of them have nothing at all, but every one of them has the straw. And I've had a handful of guides tell me that they actually use the straw concept because it works so well. And it's very easy to do. All we're going to do is take this size 1 hook, put it into the main body of the shrimp, come up through what a lot of people refer to as the helmet of the shrimp, okay? And I got that little stinger hook that sits out in front. So basically, that's all you need to do with that one. Now, I'm going to straighten that shrimp out a little bit, put a half hitch, okay? Snug that up. Now I'm going to draw these legs back, and we're just going to slide this straw down here and basically twist it onto the tail, just like this. Okay, we're going to push that right on up there and snug it. 1 half hitch instead of multiple half hitches on the tail, which typically can cut through your shrimp. So that is the nice thing about that straw, is I can simply pin that line goes alongside the straw. It pulls tension against the half hitch. The water hitting against that smile blade keeps everything pushed down. I got that stinger hook right out in front of where those fish, they come and attack this thing from the head forward. So as those fish come up and see this thing swimming at them, they're looking at the head of that shrimp. And I've caught many of those fish just on that stinger hook. Ultimately, you'd like to get that bigger hook into them, but sometimes it happens just on that stinger hook. So that pretty much is the rig right there. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. When it runs in the water, typically it does not spin, so it just basically swims back and forth off your diver, and it presents in a very natural manner. You have great color, great scent, a durable bait that's going to fish well, and off of a bait diver, that is a deadly combination with Summer Steelhead. That stinger hook sitting right out in front of the head, a hook in the mid body, and of course the half hitch and the straw makes for a durable bait that fishes very well. You can fish the same rig under a float if you want to use a double hook, and simply just rig that without any beads or any type of flotation or smile blade or anything above it. That would just hang underneath my float or bobber going down the river if I'm drift fishing or float fishing. That's pretty much it. Pretty simple recipe. Get yourself a few of these Potski products, because this combination is deadly, and it will definitely prove its weight in worth of the purchase that you make. Get online, look for where you can find your local frozen, blanched coon shrimp, and uncured, of course, because you're curing them on your own, and give this a try. All right, that's going to do it for us here in the Bait Lab. We're going to break out for a commercial, and we come back. I'm trying to remember. I think we're back in studio. Yes, we're going to introduce Jason Phelps when we come back. So don't go anywhere. Stick with us right here on FHM. We'll be back shortly. All right, guys, ready? Yep. Hey, welcome back to FHN. We found our way back into the studio. We're running on a shoestring budget here, so trying to make this all work. But thanks for sticking it out during the break. Jason Phelps, welcome to the Fish Hunt Northwest studio.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. You're a busy guy. I know you got a lot going on, but I don't know what Barton had to do to get you in here, but appreciate you showing up. Just ask nicely. Well, you guys know each other for a long time.
Yeah,
right?
I think he used to date one of my cousins way back in the day. Way back in the day. I remember going to my grandma's house and like, who's this guy here from?
Is that right?
Yeah.
No, well, it's not right. But
that's not right. Well, we are here to talk about some game calls. But first, we're going to kind of delve into this turkey thing. We're just before the opener of our turkey season for 2019. And you're a pretty accomplished turkey hunter in your own right, and caller, obviously. You brought in a bag full of calls, and most of these are turkey calls that you brought us, but I have 5 different calls sitting on my desk, 5 different colors of latex or whatnot that you've built these with. Let's walk through the colors of these calls and what the significance of each one of those are.
All right, so when I go into designing a turkey call and different sounds that I want, so the first thing you talk about turkey call is rasp. Kind of that bottom end, how much rasp you're going to give the call. And we accomplish that rasp. In that top reed, there's an amount of material that overhangs the middle reed. So you're actually getting your high end off of that middle reed, and then depending on how much material and the way that material is cut that overhangs on the top reed gives you your rasp. So we're trying to come up with a combination that gives you your high end, your high note, and then it breaks over into that rasp.
Okay.
So if we were to leave a call that was just 3 straight reeds, that would be really high end. You'd have a lot of resistance because there'd be no cut, no relief in that top reed, but then not have a big raspy breakover. Whereas the more material, the more chunky cuts you leave overhanging, that starts to introduce rasp. Now, I think you have one that has like a light blue latex on the back. That's actually like a prophylactic.
Yeah.
It's a little bit lighter. It's easier to purr on. It's easier to do soft clucks. It gets a little bit higher note because it's a thinner piece of latex, a prophylactic.
Okay.
And then we can also vary the thickness of those top reeds to give different varying rasp, whether it's a deeper rasp or if you go thinner on the top, you can get a thinner rasp. And it just depends on what that call that I'm designing it for. Are we designing it for heavy cutting, the locator? Are we designing it for really extremely loud yelps? So you can locate with it, and then you may want to switch calls up, as you go into call them in, your subtler sound. So,
but only through trial and error and practice with each individual do you figure out what sounds you're able to make with which calls, because you, being so fine-tuned in this, not only with your ear, but your palate and the ability to work a call and design, I can look at each one of these with the different colors, and every one of them has a different cut, as you're talking about, right? So it's going to produce a different sound. But if all 4 of us put this blue reed in our mouth and blew it, we'd all have a different sound.
Yeah, slightly. Turkey calls are, in my opinion, a little bit, they're not so much like elk calls. Elk calls, to me, seem to have more of a variance from caller to caller. It seems like most turkey calls, you can throw it in. Now, the one thing, and I don't want to go too deep into a tangent, is on turkey calls, and the reason we set chunks of material off to like one side, you can see on this call, I've got a big chunk out of one side, and the overhanging materials on one. Turkey callers, guys will blow down the center, guys can blow out the right and get rid of some of the rasp, or a guy could turn the air into that chunk cut and pick up more rasp. So that's kind of why you see the varying sections missing on one side, or the calls that are straight down the middle. They're kind of the universal where you're not going to be able to change a whole lot.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Yeah, what typically when you go turkey hunting, how many reeds are you taking with you as far as different pitch, tone, or what you expect that reed to do?
I mean, if I had to buy them myself, I mean, I have a bag. I have a bag this big. If I was going to go on a 7-day turkey hunt, 3 calls are going to get me through. I like to have a clean call. I like to have a really heavy call to locate with, and then I like to have that medium rasp call just to do my final work.
Okay, so it's a series of calls in order, basically like communicating with any other animal in a reed call. So walk us through that progression. I mean, you got your microphone on, but perhaps let's start out with that initial call, and then the next type of call you would present, and then you got one strutting on in and what you're going to do to seal the deal.
Yep, so I like to hunt I'll back up just a little bit before we get into. I like to hunt turkeys similar to a hunting elk. I don't hunt in the bottoms. I'll get up on a ridge top. I'm hunting public land. I'll just walk that ridge top and kind of cast. Whether it's turkey calls, and another thing that I use but I don't make is owl calls, crow calls, coyote howlers. A little bit of everything to locate with, because in my opinion, if I can locate them without using a turkey call, I'm better off.
Yeah, I actually listened to Ranella and the boys go down this tirade of what have you got a turkey to respond to, and the guys, they're pulling all out crazy stuff out, slamming car doors. I mean, you name it. There's like a list of things that turkeys will respond to, and the crow call is one for sure that seems to work more often than not, right?
Yeah, especially here on the west side, Western Washington, that was my go-to. When I go to Eastern Washington, I'll switch to coyote call. If I'm trying to roost them at night, the coyote howl seems to be the go-to. So we just have different tricks. I can do an owl hoot just by cupping my hands that I've had great success with everywhere. And so it's just weird sounds that seem to work. But it seems like during turkey season, when we're not scouting, when we're actually going to try to call them in, I'll run those ridges and do a lot of turkey, just loud yelps.
Sure.
And we're going to use I typically will use a heavier call for that, not a lot of cut, just kind of our split V. I'll walk down that ridge and I'm just going to do some loud yelps. I'm just going to blow out the mic here. And then just listen. So we're just going to walk down that ridge, kind of broadcasting that sound as we move down the ridge.
Right.
And we're throwing everything at them. In my opinion, the way we've had good success with it is I'll do that, and then I'll walk 50 yards in crow call, and then I'll walk 50 yards in owl hoot, and then I'll walk 50 yards and do a pileated woodpecker. I'm throwing everything at a pileated woodpecker.
What, son? A what?
A woodpecker.
Did you say a woodpecker?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has a really high-pitched peacocks. Yeah. There's all kinds of locators that we'll throw everything at them as we walk down.
Right.
Just anything to get a shot gobble.
Yeah.
Right.
Just trying to.
Just locate.
Yeah, and in the morning we're always hunting the roost. I think I'm batting about 0% though on killing a bird out of the roost. No matter how many times I can watch that turkey do the same thing 3 days in a row, I will go sit there on the fourth day and that thing will pitch and go a completely different direction. And I think if I would resist calling, I always want to get him to gobble in the tree one more time. Get like a little soft tree up, and they're almost like, hey, I don't see you down there. I'm going,
right. You're down way too early.
Yeah. Nobody else is on the ground yet. What are you doing down there? Rogue bird, right? Yeah. So, all right. So you get them to respond. Then what are you doing?
We're moving in. We're hunting. Thank God you don't have to worry about the wind. So you can just, as long as they don't see you, you're good.
Right.
We're hunting. We're aggressive. We're going to get as close as we can. Try to figure out where we think they're at, move towards them, and then try to set up. And a lot of our turkey calling, I think very rarely we called them in, on that first try. We've had to set up and then set up again and set up again, and eventually we can get that bird to turn.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. To not get set in a spot, be flexible, willing to move, run and gun.
Yeah,
And I found that to be kind of crucial.
Yeah, and we use real lightweight foam decoys. We still try to set them out when we think we have time. We'll go throw them out and we'll go pick them up and chase them again. Carry them in our hand and reset and try to call them back in.
So as you're making these calls, I'm an elk hunter. I call elk. Turkeys all kind of getting new to me, and I'm excited about diving into it this year. But as you're making these calls, is it a lot like elk, where you figure out a sound that Tom's liking and you stick with it, or do you intentionally change it up? Or
you kind of, that's how I've always called, and I've never been taught by like a professional turkey. We just went out and if they like the yelp, we'll stay with it. If they like the small, the subtle clucks, we'll stay with it. My wife's bird, her first turkey, I don't particularly like the sound of a box call. Like it's harsh, it's high pitched. That dang bird would only answer a box call.
Right.
And so we stuck with it and called that thing into real close range. And so it's just kind of whatever they like, we'll stick with.
Okay. So if somebody was getting into these diaphragm calls, and let's say you're not an elk hunter, you don't spend a lot of time with reeds, what is probably the easiest out of these calls to blow? What's the name of that call?
So the purple-topped Casper is probably the easiest. It gives you a little bit of rasp, but it's really, really easy to call. It's got 2 thin layers on the back, so it doesn't take a lot of air. Pretty natural rasp, and then so the Casper, that's probably my most typical question. Hey, I don't want to buy all of them. The Casper, Trippin' Hen, and then the Rippin' Red are kind of the 3 that kind of cover everything for me.
Okay.
If you're going to learn, let's say you're going to learn 3 basic calls and to go turkey hunting, you're a beginning turkey hunter, what do you recommend the 3 fundamental calls to call?
So bar
turkey?
none, your 7 to 9 note yelp, just your typical, yelp. Second would just be your clucks, just real soft stuff if they're getting in close or just slowly working in. And then third would be cutting. When I'm trying to locate a bird, whether you're using the diaphragm, they also make cut tubes. They stretch just a tight piece of latex over a little cone, and you can just basically blow straight into it, and it'll make that real harsh cut. Or you can do it with a box, just a real hard chop on that box. So those are the 3 that I would concentrate on. But yelp. I mean, for me, turkey calling, it's 95% yelping.
Okay, good. That's what I'm thinking going into this. Like, the elk calling for me has been very successful, and this turkey thing's new. And the more you talk right there, the more I'm like, oh man, I really got to put effort into this.
I don't stand a chance.
In my mouth, walking out there, go, and I'm gonna kill a bird.
I was really intimidated by the whole mouth call thing. My whole life, my whole hunting life, I have been, and I would just put it in my mouth on my way to work, driving in the truck. No, I'm not embarrassed when I'm all by myself, and just rip away on that thing. And finally, I got comfortable enough with it. That's where I just leave it in my mouth. And the guys at work can attest to this, man. From the poor guys, I'd just be howling on that thing all day, know. And I would keep one up here in the brim of my hat, so that I would, if I got tired of it, I was blowing on them so much, and the roof of my mouth was raw. Right? And it was. So
early season, if I'm going to get out and scout, kind of looking for some areas. I mean, it's helpful if Tommy and I had the luxury last year. Made some contacts over on the east side, over there in turkey country, so to speak, and had opportunity to set up on this nice big open hilly, lots of trees and stuff dairy farm. That they allowed us to have access to their field. These turkeys come down in the fall on a march and just get into his barns and just tear the crap out of everything and just really create a lot of damage on his farm. So John's like, hey, come over and hunt these birds, right? So I had hunted over there the year previous in the fall on my way over to deer hunt, and with my bow was successful in getting a nice little jake, and that was fun. But man, different animal in the fall versus the spring. You're having to work a lot harder in the spring, definitely, because they're spread out. They have their patterns that they establish. They have kind of their pecking order. It's very characteristic of larger animals that are in the rut and the strut, right? They're just very different in their demeanor that time of year. So how do we, you're walking the ridge, you're locating, you move in on them. Other things we can do if we're having trouble finding birds.
We cover a ton of ground. You are doing a lot of walking. My favorite way to find birds, and we will do this if our area is just not producing, we're not getting anything, is spend that last hour of daylight, and your only goal, you're not hunting at that point. If you cannot if you can't find a bird, you're not gonna be able to kill it. So we'll sacrifice a night hunt just to go locate birds. We've stayed out an hour and a half past dark, driving around on the road, locating here, and then we'll drive and locate here, just trying to pick up 2 or 3 options, and then ultimately, because a lot of times, even if we can't kill that bird off of the roost, it's going to give us a half-day hunt. Chase them around and playing the game. Other than that, we just walk, and a lot of times, loud cutting, you'll get down a little bit when things are going slower. You can't pick up a bird, but eventually, even midday, we'll pick up a bird finally, at least to play the game with. If we walk far enough. If
you're planning to get out just after the opener, for example, and the weather is, like last year, we had a long, sustaining winter. It carried over into spring. It was cold. We had snow, we had hail, we had wind blowing like crazy. That first week after the opener, I think we went over there like 2 days after opening of the season. And it was tough. It's like, well, then you wait 2 weeks and spring is here. The weather warms up. You're not hitting below freezing. We literally hit below freezing every night we were over there. And it was a different game. You wait 2 weeks, and then I'm talking to guys over there like, oh yeah, man, we came out this morning and there were birds everywhere. So weather definitely, huge plays in, right?
Yeah, and hopefully nobody yells at me for this. We've hunted Washington enough to know that in Eastern Washington, in my opinion, until that first weekend in May, it's almost not worth going. My time. Not just because of weather, but because of turkey patterns and those hens being bred. You can sit over there and stay with the flock all day, and those hens will never break because they're not going to lay yet. The younger hens especially, they're just knotted up, and you cannot pull that bird away. Where when you start to get into that, May 5th, May 10th, those hens will all go lay, and all of a sudden about 10 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, you hear that gobble. You're like, all right, this is a callable bird.
Yeah.
Especially those, you can call them the 2-year-olds and stuff, but if you're after one of those 3 or one of the
4-year-old toms,
4-year-old type birds, if they're even around,
right.
In order to kill those older, more mature birds, you're going to have to get those hens all on a root or on a nest somewhere.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
makes perfect sense.
Early season's tough. No matter how you slice it, and like you said, weather could be conducive, but the bird activity and their habits, right, their behavior kind of dictates your opportunity to pull one in or pull them away, which is what you're trying to do. So.
The old timers I hunt with, they kind of joke, we'll let you young bucks go over there, go out in the morning, stir them up, get up 2 hours before daylight, we're going to sleep in, eat breakfast, and then we'll go show you how to kill them at lunchtime.
No.
Sounds like they got it pretty much dialed, don't they?
They do, because we haven't brought back too many early morning birds.
Yeah.
So a lot like out then, like the bull that bugles at noon always dies.
Yeah,
the turkey that gobbles at noon always dies.
Pretty much,
real
right?
Similar, real similar.
Okay. Interesting.
Right.
Well, we know for certain our turkey season is not going to be till well into May, because when Coach Barnum is done playing baseball, we're going to go kill some turkeys. So we're in no hurry to get out there this year. We got areas we get to go that aren't going to be heavily pressured. We already know that. So we're not in a hurry to go over there and stir them up. We're just going to wait it out, and the weather's going to be conducive, and the time of year should be good. And by God, if we do it right, the 3 of us can come home with a couple turkeys. So that's kind of the goal. Well, we're going to get into a little bit more call discussion later on, because you have a lot of stuff going on at Phelps Game Calls. You got new shop getting built. You got a new line of calls coming out. You got all different types of game calls I want to talk to you about, and where it's going, and tons of things going on. So you taking time to come in and spend it with us today is pretty awesome. So we're going to do that later in the show. Right now we're going to jump out for a quick break. We're a little behind, no big deal, because we make our own time, so it really doesn't matter. We're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, we are going to now be in the kitchen with Chef Kelly and Sherry for the recipe of the week. Don't go anywhere. You're going to want to find out what you can do with your whitetail steaks. This is a fantastic recipe. Stay right here. Come back. FHN.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We're here in the kitchen with Chef Kelly for our recipe of the week. What do you have going?
Well, we got some venison steaks today, and I thought that, one of my go-to recipes in the kitchen, for all restaurants I've ever worked at, has been a au poivre sauce. So it's a pan sauce, and we're going to do a variation on that. We're going to make a whiskey peppercorn sauce. It's the same family. It's all going to be done right in the pan. Okay?
Well, deer's one of my favorite.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
It's lean, so make sure that we're going to absolutely kind of keep this medium rare. Okay.
Yes.
Because once you start to get a little too more on the medium well done side, you're going to start getting all those flavors that everybody doesn't really quite like.
Yeah, and you've got all the gray skin off of there.
Yeah, all that silver skin is all chopped off there. We're going to season both sides. Just like any other thing, no one-sided seasoning.
Yeah, because that silver skin makes it kind of tough.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Kosher salt.
Kosher salt.
Yep.
Yes. All right, so we're going to switch my little kit
Okay.
over here. Okay, we've got a pan nice and good and hot. You see, got a little smoke going. Right? So.
All ready to go?
Yep. Got our steaks.
Love that sound.
Right?
Yep.
And remember, we're always going to be, when you put something in the pan, fling it away from you. It's just, some people, they go this, I'm going to throw it in there and then I'm going to run away. That's not a good plan. Not a good plan.
Yeah.
The oil will win at some point.
Every time.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. So we're getting some good color. Want to keep it, this stove not to level it, right? So
you get the oil going underneath.
Right?
Yep. Looks amazing. So I see you have some asparagus over here.
Yes, asparagus. I have that pre-blanched, and all blanching is, in the restaurant, what we do is we'll take a big pot of water, salt it, and then cook our vegetables in the water, then pull it out, and then put it in an ice bath so that it can stop the cooking process.
And so, you cook them to about 70%,
yeah,
right?
About 75%, and then you're going to finish the cooking process in the pan. And so that's how we cook it.
Yeah, anybody that knows how to cook asparagus, I mean, we always have the problem of that balance, finding the balance of being too done or not done enough. So that kind of cuts that out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you see, we got some good color. Okay, we're done.
All right. Well, look how quick that was.
How quick was that, right? Okay, so now you can see there's a little bit of brown. We call it fond in the restaurant business.
Fond.
Fond. It's the French call it fond. And that's all your flavor here. So we're trying to pick that up. We're adding a little bit of shallots.
All
These are shallots. You can find them in any store. Okay, they're those little guys. Like
dice them up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be adding. This is a whiskey peppercorn sauce. So we're adding our whiskey. And there are some dangers to this.
Danger.
Right? So we got a little bit of caramelized right there.
All right.
We're adding our whiskey off the flame. And
off the flame.
And not straight out of the bottle. Okay? How you're going to have an accident is that this is on, it's on the fire, and you take the bottle of whiskey and go right to it.
Yeah.
That's a guaranteed way to make an explosion in your hand. So off the flame, and I usually put it in a separate container and pour it in there.
Well, thank goodness, because Duane's off duty today.
Right?
Right? He wouldn't come and save us.
No?
No.
So we're all reduced down. There's a little bit of beef stock.
All right.
Okay. A little touch of cream. Okay. And we're going to be using two types of peppercorns. We're using green peppercorns. These are the ones you're going to find by your capers. They are not capers by any means. These are actual peppercorns that are soaked in brine, and they're kind of a little bit softer, milder,
Yeah, so the difference between them is capers are
actual like a flower bud, and they're totally different. They're not even related. People look at them, oh, they're like caper. No, not even.
Well, that's exactly where I was.
Right? I usually crush these guys just a little bit. Just get a little more flavor out of them.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And then the other pepper we're going to add is some fresh ground pepper. There you go. I just took a pan and put those peppercorns on the cutting board and just kind of roll it over just a few at a time. It's easier to do it just a few at a time. But otherwise, if you try to do it like all of them at the same time, they go shooting off everywhere.
So you crush your own?
Yeah, I crush my own. Fresh peppers, absolutely better. If you wanted to use, your pepper grinder, that's fine too. Okay, so we're getting there. Okay, obviously you see we're not using any kind of starch, so we just need this a natural reduction sauce is what we call it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to switch pans.
What's so nice about this is pretty much we all have everything available in our houses on a normal basis for this
Yes,
dish.
I mean, if you have, if you like whiskey, you should have that. Beef stock should be always in, part of your pantry. And maybe you get some, the green peppercorns and the cream. There you go. You have your sauce.
You're golden.
Right?
Ready.
So our steaks are still nice, beautiful, medium rare.
Yes.
Okay, so we're getting our pan hot as it's reducing right here. All right. Get a little bit of oil. A little extra salt.
All right. Extra pepper.
A little bit of pepper.
A little bit of pepper. Always like a lot of pepper.
Right?
Yep.
And we're going to saute this up. We're just going to get a little bit of color on it. We're almost there already.
Yeah. Wow. Wish we had smell-o-vision. At some point, you think we can have that, Chef?
Oh yeah, we'll have that.
It's coming, I know.
We actually use some brown sugar bourbon here, and you really can smell it.
Yeah,
you
can.
To it. I like it. I like our choice today. All right, so we're going to start plating up.
Okay.
We're going to plate here. We're going to build a base. Our asparagus. So, are you liking this? That this is actually keto friendly.
I'm loving it.
So,
don't even have to cheat.
What is keto
this week?
I don't know what that is. I know it's like a low carb kind of.
It's
high
very
protein.
low carb, medium protein, very high fat. I know that sounds wrong, but it is correct. It works.
It works?
Yep. A lot of people in the outdoors are doing it now. Yep.
Good. Okay.
And I don't think it's a fad.
There's our sauce.
Yeah.
Okay. Got our steaks.
How incredible. Oh.
All rested. Normally like to always try to rest our steaks.
Okay.
Typically, in the restaurants, you want, people are like, oh, they take it off the grill.
Right.
Oh, I want to eat it right now. Really, if you can, let's try to rest it as best as we can.
So you kind of like it when they take a little longer for your steaks.
Yes. You're doing you a favor.
So quit cussing them when you're waiting on your steak.
Right.
Ugh.
Let me get some of those goodies in the bottom.
The shallots and...
Yeah, the shallots and the green peppercorns and all that good stuff. A little bit of parsley. I don't see why that could be served in any steak restaurant anywhere in the country.
Let's lift that up a little bit. Or just raise it up?
Let's raise it up. Okay.
Let's just raise it
There
up.
we go.
Raise it up high, Chef. Yeah. Well, this looks amazing, and I can't wait to dig in. But we are first going to go back to the guys in the studio for the rest of the show.
All right.
Hey, welcome back in the studio here at Fish Hunt Northwest. You ever done steaks like that, Barnum?
Not quite like that.
That is
He's
some
way better than me.
That's some whitetail magic there. Phelps is over here drooling. He had to step away and wipe off with a bib, but
I can tell you, I know for a fact those whitetail steaks are good, so I guarantee you that's going to be some good eating later.
Yeah, well, hopefully they just they keep them, tempered and nice and warm and sitting and resting, and when we get done here, we're gonna
That's
go.
the good thing about not killing the giant buck you're after is you end up harvesting a doe, and then it's better eating.
Darn.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
All right, but before we can get into there and enjoy that, we got a few more things we need to take care of. One of them is the weather, and last time I checked, we got some weather moving in this weekend. Rain accumulation, got some wind blowing, gonna maybe minimize our opportunity to get out and actually do stuff. What do you got going on?
I'm gonna hop up there. We definitely got a big change coming, and it's gonna affect your weekend. I mean, come on, screen. We got a couple things that are going on. We got a clam dig this weekend. That's Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
What'd you look at me for?
And things are gonna get ugly for that.
Are you going, Tommy?
Yeah, I'm going.
That's right, you are. I'm working. You're going. Okay.
We still got a little bit of fishing going on. We got Puget Sounds fishing. We got the oceans obviously fishing. The Washington rivers, I believe, are for the most part closed now, right?
They're getting there, yeah.
Right.
The coastal stuff is still open. We're going to have a little
Right.
bump in water, that's for sure.
But let's just jump kind of into this forecast. Basically what we got a couple low pressure systems coming in. As we start looking at Saturday, we're looking at heavy rain, a high near 54. Winds are going to be 14 to 18 miles an hour, gusting to 31.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, so things are going to get ugly. And I just want to, we're talking about this clam tide, and looking at this, they're not the greatest tides. Saturday we got a low of 0.4 at 8:20 a.m. It's an early tide, but it's only a 0.4, but it'll still dig. We're going to go into may or may not still dig, I guess, but
weather permitting.
That tide will dig. And then Sunday, 1/10, at 8:56, so it's not bad, but this is what has me concerned for the clam digging. Let's look at this ocean swell report. As you guys know, the bigger the waves that are pounding on the beach, the less the clams tend to show because it drives the clams a little bit deeper into the sand.
Yeah.
So Saturday, you're looking at southwest winds 20 to 25 knots, becoming 20 to 30 knots in the afternoon. Wind waves are going to be 3 to 5 feet, and they're going to build to 4 to 6, and you're going to have a 12-foot swell at 20 seconds. Building to a 16-foot at 18 seconds.
So Tommy is looking at ideal conditions to get his surf perch fishing on.
Appreciate
So
that.
I mean,
Thanks,
when
guys.
you guys look at that, you're looking at a 16-foot swell with a 4 to 6 foot wind wave stacking on top.
Grab your snorkel, buddy.
It's gonna be, if you guys do hit the beach, and I mean, we had a couple years ago, we had a fairly large storm that came in during a clam dig opener, and I put out a little PSA on Facebook. Don't turn your back to the ocean on
Right.
that. I mean, you guys are going to go clam digging. I know the diehards are like, I'm going, I don't care. Don't turn your back to the ocean.
Right.
I mean,
Good
these are
point.
exactly the kind of systems where you turn your back, a rogue wave comes in, a sneaker wave, it hits you, and you're in a life and death situation.
Good point. Very good
15
point.
clams are not worth dying over.
No.
I promise you.
No.
But let's look, we have the blackmouth fishery going on, and let's kind of look at Puget Sound and see what it's going to do with this weather. You're going to be facing Saturday and Sunday 14, right around 9 to 15 knot winds. I mean, so right around that 10 to 15 knot wind with a wind wave at about 1 to 2 feet. So it's going to be choppy out there and nasty. It's not going to, if you're trolling, I don't know how hard that wind affects the jig. I'm sure really bad. But it also affects your troll really bad.
Definitely.
You end up crab walking, and it's really hard to keep a straight troll. So with all this rain coming in, maybe I lost that page, so I don't have that one anymore. But anyway, we have a lot of rain coming in over the weekend, and let's take at some of these rivers. The Kalawa, if we look at this forecast, as you see here, the 6th and the 7th, this thing is just going to rocket up, and I mean, this might be the first time in a while rivers might be unfishable for a couple days.
Yeah, it might be for a couple days, but on that drop, as we close out the season there, you know, through mid-April, you may have a good opportunity to pick up.
We haven't seen a big spike in the flow from a big rain event like this for
quite
a while.
some time.
Yeah, so
quite
this
some
is going to
time.
be a little bit different fishing for you guys. And then as we hop up to the Willamette, same thing. I mean, this is going to show up a little later. The 8th and the 9th, we're going to see this big spike, and not so much this weekend, but I mean, you may actually be able to fish this relatively good. It's going to be on the rise, but at least through the weekend, it might be somewhat.
Well, and with that, too, is the problem there is the turbidity. You know, I think it's so punched off color. It may make it a little more difficult to go out and scratch out a springer here and there, but, you know, get on that drop, and as the water begins to clear up, then, of course, you only get to fish it. Well, no, you keep fishing it. The Columbia closes after the 10th, but okay.
And then the Clearwater at Orofino, I mean, as we know, this system's going to move east, you know, from the coast over across the mountains, and you're going to see going into early next week just a steady rise in water levels there, and then as we break back into next weekend, that river's going to begin to, you know, go on the drop again.
Yep.
So, I mean, some tough steelhead fishing coming up is what I'd say.
Yeah, to finish it out. But, yeah, it looks like you lost your 10-day page. But
that's all right.
I was looking at the graph earlier today, and holy cow, we're yellow in the mountains, right?
Yeah.
We're exceeding 2 inches in some of our mountains in the Cascades and whatnot in the foothills, and it's definitely going to drop some rain on us, no doubt about it.
Yeah, we're definitely looking at, we're going to get, over the next couple days, at least an inch of rain, probably closer to 2, and things are going to get sloppy out there. So
well, 100%, 90%, 90%.
If you guys do decide to hit that clam dig opener, like I said, make sure you're safe, pack your rain gear, you're going to need it, and especially if you get the kids out there, keep an eye on everybody and don't turn your back to the ocean.
Very good point.
So that's all we got for the weather. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and when we come back to the studio, Phelps is going to be back with us, and we're going to talk about how things are growing for Jason and how business has been going.
It's booming, baby.
Yeah.
It's getting big. All right, jump out for a break. We'll be right back here on FHM. Welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We're back here in the studio as we kind of wind down towards the latter part of the show. Jason Phelps is hanging in there. Not hungry or nothing, are you?
No. Try not to make him fall asleep.
I had to lock that door. You see that at the break barn? He was heading for them steaks. So, keeping you in here. So, hey, let's talk a little bit about history as far as the development of Phelps Game Calls. When did you actually launch the actual recognized business?
So 2009, we kind of started that venture. I always joke with my wife is I've kind of got that entrepreneurial, feel to. I had went from one kind of failing business. It didn't really fail. It just wasn't ever going to make it. And I always joke with my wife that I had to actually sit in the house with her for like 3 months, and then I had to find something else to do. So it kind of spurred Phelps Game Calls so I could get back out in the shop.
You got to find motivation somewhere, man. Whatever it takes.
It was just kind of the passion. Like out of all the stuff I've did, riding 4-wheelers, doing this and doing that, and all the stuff I kind of fell in love with. Like elk hunting was always kind of that staple. Like I've loved elk hunting ever since I was young. I loved calling elk, and so it was just kind of a natural path. The problem was I knew zero about making elk calls. I knew how to run them fairly well at a pretty high level. I knew nothing about making them, and so then it was kind of like, examine what's working, how do they, and just starting to basically, re-engineer them.
Your background education's in engineering, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, put that brain to work and kind of go, I can make one of them.
It's tough to turn it off, but we always just kind of, how's this work? Dissect it, what and why and how come.
Right. So you started building them yourself.
Yep.
And then you started hand them out to buddies, say, hey, try this? Or?
Yeah, I thought maybe I would sell a few. It caught traction on a few, some websites early on, like monstermuleys.com. The guy allowed me to do some giveaways. And then people were like, hey, I really like that call. I'd like to order 4 of my buddies' calls. And I thought maybe in that first year I might make 50 and I might sell half of them.
Right.
And, the first year clicked off. I'm like, that was a pretty good response. And, it was just the wood calls to start with for the first couple of years. And then no one... as a diehard, hunter or bow hunter and a guy that wants to call elk, I'm like, man, eventually I'm going to have to figure out these diaphragms or figure out how to get in. And so I scrimped and saved every dime we made off the wood calls and built up a little savings account and then just, bought all the presses all at once. And was able to kind of get some steam on some of these flat diaphragms is what I call them. They don't have any... they're just old traditional flat calls. Kind of developed some elk calls around those. They caught a little bit, and then knowing ultimately it was time to develop my own bugle tubes, we developed an amp diaphragm that's completely ours from the ground up. These are actually on a medium frame that are ours. But it in the progression, not only do you have to market it and try to convince people that, hey, it's worth giving us a shot from what you were using, every step gets exponentially more expensive. Like you can build on frames and tape and stuff you can buy from, www.
Sure.
People that sell latex and tape and presses. But when you want to develop your own frame or when you want to develop your own bugle tube, it's like, wow, that's a huge commitment. And is this thing going to sound right? And is it going to perform right?
Yeah.
And that was our big leap of faith about 3 years ago when this thing, 7 years into it, really kind of took off. We had a pretty good bump in 2012. And as stupid as it sounds, I was fortunate enough to kill some very quality bulls that year. It's like, oh, these must work now. I mean, it's the same calls I've been making for the last 3 years. It just I happened to get lucky, and it landed in a couple magazines and stuff, and things took off. And then we kind of grew a little bit. We've kind of always grown, and then when we launched the new tube, the new amp elk diaphragms is really when we saw kind of the real recognition within the elk calling world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you've teamed up with some other guys too?
Yeah, I mean, my brain, thankfully, I'm not such an engineer that I can't think socially.
Right.
And so I've created some great partnerships with some great people in the industry. One of them, Dirk Durham, 8-time world champion. But more important than the 8-time world champion is an absolute stud of a guy, very personable, funny as heck.
Right.
And so that's just, we're trying to surround the company with just, people, not necessarily because you're, good, but because you provide a lot of, you're able to bring a lot more to the table. And so we've, a lot of, Born and Raised Outdoors, the Hush Crew, just getting the calls into their hand and kind of putting the decision on them. Like, hey, are these things good enough to use? And then like the Born and Raised crew, very successful project, but we met with them and they just designed their own calls. Like, we didn't give them any input. They're like, hey, this is what we want, and we sat there and built them 50 to 100 calls, and they pick the 3 that they like and launch them. So we've had some very, very, very good input from a lot of our partners and a lot of help on the marketing side.
Yeah.
So you've got a big expansion coming, right? I mean,
we are
moving buildings.
We are. It was a struggle between the employees we have, the space that we have. We're leasing space to keep the bugle tubes. The bugle tubes take up a ton of room. We're working out of a very small shop. What it looks like on the internet isn't necessarily what we're dealing with on a day-to-day. So we needed some more room. So we've got the footings poured for the new, compound, warehouse, shop, office, whatever you want to call it. And we're hoping to have that up and running by July 1st of this year.
That's going to be a big addition to the booming town of PL.
And just efficiency. I always sit back and do I need to hire more people? Do I need to make my people that I've got that are already very skilled more efficient? What are these ways that keep growing? And rather than just continue to hire people, I'm like, let's try to make a space that's more efficient.
Right.
So that was kind of my next step.
That is the engineering head.
There's a couple different ways to get there, and so I'm like, well, we've tried the hiring people. Let's just maybe expand on who you got. So we'll see where this gets us.
So you have an established line of turkey calls. You have an established line of elk calls, bugles. You have a what was the one they were demonstrating down there?
Duck calls came out this year, this past fall.
Working on goose calls too?
We are working on goose calls. Now, I'm completely transparent. I am not the great waterfowl caller, but I'm smart enough to go out and find a very, very accomplished waterfowl caller and designer.
Sure.
So we teamed up with Eric Strand out of Oregon. He's the owner of S2 Outfitters, hunts the Columbia, the Savis quite a bit.
Right.
And so Eric basically designed our duck call line, and now he's going to go through and design the short reed goose calls for us.
Oh, nice.
So it's one of those things where I want to fill in all the gaps because you have this big bump in elk season, and we did a pretty good job making elk calls cool year round. Like you buy them in April, buy them in October, buy them for Christmas presents. Yeah. So we kind of leveled off, but it's like, man, if we could fill the holes, fill this, or the turkey calls. Steve Ranella has been a huge help with the Meat Eater crew on our turkey call side.
Right.
So now this time of year we're just cranking on turkey calls.
Right.
So I'm trying to fill in all of these gaps. So filling out the waterfowl side, we've got 3 predator calls designed that are on their final stage of prototyping.
Oh, nice.
We've got a deer call out. I wanted to be one of the first ones to bring a blacktail specific. So I've had a lot of sound files of grunts, bleats, and stuff sent to me.
Is that a multiple adjustable type call?
It will be adjustable.
For bleats and grunts? Or
grunts.
Okay.
So what I found in development of this call, the grunts are really what I had to dial in more for blacktail. It's a little bit softer and deeper than a whitetail grunt.
Yeah.
And then the bleats just kind of fell into place when you moved the board. So when we went and designed that, I really concentrated on the buck grunt and then let the bleat just fall where it did. Right. It was fine.
Right.
And then predators, and then we'll get that deer call out hopefully this fall.
Yeah, you're around.
So I'm sure you guys get slammed right as the season approaches. So what can people do to help you, but not only help you, but help themselves to make sure they get their calls on the time? How far ahead of each coming up season, whether it be September for elk or November for deer, should people be buying those calls?
That's a good question.
We can, with the way we've grown the last couple of years, we can handle the August 31st order. I mean, we can handle that.
Barnum? Yeah. Guilty?
Yeah. I usually private message him.
I'm sure you can. Hey, you want to swing by the house and drop a few off?
I mean, we can handle those now. We're set up. We typically have an inventory to handle that. I mean, but for us, the earlier the better. I mean, not only for your practice, make sure they're good enough, that they're all dialed in, they're broken.
Yep.
But, now ideally for elk, as soon as the spring's over, I would say start ordering your elk calls.
Right. Yeah.
As long as you keep them stored in a cool, dry place that doesn't get a whole lot of sunlight, they're not going to go any. They're going to be fine.
Yeah. After you use those calls, I see guys stuff them back into a little bag or whatever. Don't you want to leave them out till they dry out?
Ideally, if I was on a turkey hunt and had to use these right away, I would take some, not the sharp toothpicks, the Dolan, rounded over toothpicks, and I would actually, at least if not both, all 3 reeds, I would separate the top reed. I would put that toothpick in there at an angle so they don't dry together. It takes you probably 20 or 30 yelps to wake the call up and get your rasp back. Sure. Otherwise, it just acts like a completely different call.
Gotcha.
Let them dry out. I advise anybody, and we have it on the back of the packaging, but some people, the first thing they do is throw the package, throw the bag, and
shove it in their mouth.
But some people that keep the bag and throw the packaging, on the back it says, we advise do not store these calls wet. It tears the latex down, it wrinkles it up, it adds some... Latex technically isn't supposed to saturate, but it will carry some moisture, and it breaks the latex down very, very quick, breaks the tape down. So I'll just grab these and throw them in a drawer, or ideally in the refrigerator or freezer. Cool, dark place is the best spot.
Freezer.
Yeah.
No? Yeah. Keep them dry and damp.
Away from... And the worst thing you can do is set them in the windowsill or on the dash of your car.
Yeah.
Like baking in the sun?
Yeah, UV just tears up the latex.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that, you know, if you get into that warm part of the spring, let's say we're middle to late May and you're still turkey hunting, and you go out in the morning, you don't have success, come back, throw it on the dash of your car, and then you're off doing something else, and it's 65 degrees outside, and it's 80 degrees in your car, and that sun's beating down on that call. That can't be good.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, one thing I've noticed about Jason's calls and using, like, you know, some of the more mainstream manufactured calls is I used to find myself during elk season, like, I bugle a lot. And I think more and more people are starting to do that. Like, I bugle a lot. Yeah. And I found myself, like, halfway through a day, like, nah. And I'm pretty critical of myself and how that call sounds because I know what works. And so halfway through the day, I find myself like, nah, that one's no good. Pull out a brand new one, get it going, use it for 2 or, you know, maybe 100 bugles, like, nah, that one's no good. And with Jason's, I found that I'll get 3-4 days out of a reed.
Still works.
Yeah, it still sounds good. Yeah. And a lot of times, even as it starts to wear, I'll save that reed because I can make a better cow call with it, with it being a little stretched. So, I mean, it's saved me money switching over to Jason's calls now.
We do the same exact thing. You know, it's a good bugle reed for a while, but just like him, I bugle a lot, and I'm extremely loud on a bugle. So you might 2 or 3 days on a bugle reed, and then just, you know, that turned into a cow reed. I'll keep it like in my bino harness away from the rest of them. Right. But
because I'm definitely always trying to reach the highest possible pitch I can, because I think that's one of the most effective sounds to make on an elk, because it's an ear piercer that makes them like, huh? Yeah. You know, and so once that call starts to get a little bit stretched, and especially like with some of your competitors, it's like I can't reach that note anymore, and it's garbage to me.
Well, he made a very good point down at Big Game University last weekend, and that, you know, when you are trying to be that dominant bull and, you know, putting out that challenge call to get them coming, you can't be loud enough. You cannot be as loud as an 800-pound animal. You cannot make enough noise. And I know that hunting with Barnum, when he's grabbing logs and throwing them down the hill and throwing rocks and breaking sticks and thrashing brush and just, I mean, he might as well drive his truck off the cliff and have that thing roll down the hill, because that's going to draw some attention. But you guys, you know, you have the same mindset in that regard, is that you cannot make enough noise when you really are trying to get aggressive and draw them bulls in, right? Yeah. So, and pitch, hitting that high pitch it seems to be everything. It's like a game changer.
See, and that's where I think turkey hunting is going to be a challenge for me, because I like that high impact, high noise, and making, you know, and doing what I got to do. And I feel like turkeys, God, they can see so good. I'm afraid to move.
I'm fearful. I'm going to look over and go, Barnum, what are you doing with that tube?
Right, you're making a tree.
You don't need that. Leave that at home.
No, trust me. If you go and hunt like elk, you're going to see a lot of running turkeys. But it's the way I like to hunt them. I really be aggressive in the sit back, so just get used to running turkeys. Okay.
Well, you know, it's another option to practice with a reed and fine-tune your skill level in that regard. And it's just, you know, different pitches, different tones. And as you pointed out in the first segment, is, you know, you have different sequences that you're working on. It's not just go out and do the same old call every time. Much like elk, you're changing it up, whether it's an aggressive, you know, hey, I want you to hear me, or it's a cow moo, or whatever you're doing, or a calf. I mean, I learned a ton this last weekend with you and a few of the other guys that were there, you know, with Mike Jenkins and whatnot. Very, very good information. And when you really start wrapping your head around it, it's like, holy cow, there's a lot to know when you're communicating with animals. You know, Tom Ryle did a phenomenal job talking about blacktail and when it's appropriate to grunt or, you know, bleat or, you know, do a little bit of antler rattle, whatever. Again, you're communicating with wild animals, and you got to try to make them understand or think that you are truly one of them, right? So there's a learning curve, no doubt, and fine-tuning that with your own ear. And I've heard some guys bugle, and they're like, what do you think? Pretty good. And I'm like, then I heard Barnum bugle, and I'm like, yeah, those guys got a lot of work to do, right? So it's tough to be your own critic, but you have to step out and go, hey, let me know what you truly think, right? And help me get better. So awesome stuff. I mean, you've been well established for a number of years now. It just keeps going straight up for you, it seems. Couldn't be happier for you. I mean, I'm excited for what's to come with your waterfowl stuff and your predator calls and all that. It's going to be great to see the Phelps brand just out there in every facet of calls. I can't wait. That's awesome.
You're excited and I'm nervous.
I can't wait to get my hands on that deer call.
Man, that's what I was going to say, man.
No doubt.
Them deer calls, when them things hit the market, man.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty much a whitetail guy now, but I'll give it a run on the whitetail.
We're going to be able to use the same tow board and change that read around, and we'll be able to have multi,
That's exciting.
Multi-calls.
Blacktail specific, man. I love it.
Yeah, perfect. All right, we're about that time. We're going to jump out for another quick break. Going to bring it back in studio here and close it out with Jason. If you got some questions relative to his calls, where you can find them, different types of calls that he's coming out with, maybe something we covered that you didn't quite pick up on, just hit us up on Messenger, either on Facebook or YouTube. We got them both up and running. Happy to answer your questions before we get out of here. So don't go anywhere. Stick around. Jump out for a quick break. We'll be right back here on Fish Hunt Northwest.
What if there was a smarter way to search for your new home? Introducing the Better Homes and Gardens real estate website and mobile app. This revolutionary new search tool puts your needs first. Narrow your search to what matters most to your family, like school data, school districts, and even walk scores. Get easy access to your local affiliated agent, as well as unique and local insights about neighborhoods and properties directly within the app. With synced and saved preferences, you'll always pick up wherever you left off. Get your smarter search started today with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate.
Welcome back to FHN. Hey, we're wrapping up the show here. Final segment. Nicely done, fellas. Made it through another one. I didn't cough my brains out too much.
Yeah, you're surviving.
Oh my God, I feel like hell. Yeah. But getting through. I was not going to cancel. It's like that's not an option, right? And
the ultimate profession.
What am I going to do? Laying there in bed while you guys are out here doing the show?
You would have ended up walking and
That's just smooth. Got my robe and my steam bath going and some tea. Yeah.
That's terrible.
Anyway, we're making it through. We got a couple questions on there for Jason. It sounded like, Barnum.
Yeah, Shane Vanderlinde. Did I say that right?
Vanderlinde. Yeah.
How critical is it to roosting turkeys in the evening prior to planning your morning hunt?
Critical. It's not critical. I just like to be in the action. I want to get a call in the morning, and there's nothing more exciting than sitting on that roost tree in the morning. Even though I had mentioned in the last segment, I've never killed a dang bird out of the roost.
Right.
But more importantly than killing that bird and not out of the roost, off of the roost, is knowing where there's lots of birds. So for me, it's more important to know that I've got birds in this area, birds in this area, birds in this area, and they're most likely going to be back in this area that evening. Right. So it just gives me a spot to hunt or concentrate.
Do you feel like with turkeys, I mean, I found like in the elk woods that if you're in an elky area, you end up being in an elky area. Yeah. Do you find that with turkeys? Like when you start to find turkeys, like there tends to be a lot more turkeys there than you ever expected?
Yeah, they definitely congregate in spots. And they like to be in certain spots that have everything they need, secure nesting areas and stuff like that. And so they'll be in that same.
I had no idea how much they actually group up in the fall. Until I saw it with my own eyes. I mean, you're talking literally hundreds and hundreds of birds. And when they decide to move, they all come strutting down the hill together and just kind of run single file line. They're just goofier than hell.
Yeah,
I'm like, what is wrong with you?
I used to have a picture of my wife from over whitetail hunting, and she's standing in the middle of a road, and there is literally hundreds of turkeys that were walking down the road that just went around her. Yeah. And they were just walking. I mean, she could have just picked one up if she wanted one.
They don't care.
I always laugh at my buddies like, God, turkeys hunting so difficult. And I know he showed that picture and it was that looked difficult. They're like as different as the spring.
They are the smartest dumb bird ever.
Right. Exactly.
They are dumb until you try to kill them, and then all of a sudden they become Einstein.
Yeah.
You can't kill the stupid things.
Yeah. They're survivalists when they need to be, right? They play dumb when they can get away with it. So, excellent information. I think folks will take away some good points from this. You know, whether it's relative to turkeys or just calls in general. Any last words you want to throw out there? Advice? Phelps advice, digging deep in that engineer head.
Oh no, you put me on the spot.
Right.
No, advice on turkey calling?
Whatever.
Anything?
Whatever.
I gave my best tip away, and is that mid-May hunting, that May 10th to May 15th in Washington. Now I can't speak for any other state. You know, this is Fish Hunt Northwest, so I'm going to give Washington advice. Is that if I could only pick 5 days to a week or a weekend, it wouldn't be until that May 7th, May 10th time frame.
I think the weather change is applicable to all states if you're hunting birds. I think the weather is a dominant factor in how these birds begin to behave, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, we've killed some soaking wet birds, but it's definitely way better when the weather's nice. I like those crisp, cool mornings. You can hear real well, hear a long ways.
Right.
So you mentioned before about taking that last hour of the day and trying to find birds for the next day hunt. So will they? Because I don't know, I'm learning about turkey. Will they gobble in the dark? Like at night, like if you were out trying to, shot call birds at midnight, will they gobble?
No, well, they may, but not typically. You usually got, like, at least everything we've located, we've got like a 30 to 45 minute window in the dark. And then once it gets pitch black, we've struggled a little bit. Okay. But they will crank up pretty early in the morning. We've actually roosted. It's not called roosting. We've actually located birds in the roost.
In the roost, yeah.
Hour and a half before daylight. Before daylight, when you can just barely see a sliver of light coming, they'll start to gobble. And so it's actually dark enough at that time. We've actually set up on roost, that morning, just like, hey, it's definitely dark enough they can't see us. We'll slip right in on them.
Okay.
Interesting. Right. All right, let's jump out of turkeys for a second. We still got a little bit of time to kill here, so. I found reading some articles today, Barn, because I got nothing else to do, sit around here and read articles. But I was intrigued by our discussion last week relative to wolves, and I actually saw a new report that came out here just the other day. Do you know how many wolves currently they've tracked or are led to believe we have population-wise in Washington right now?
Is it 122? Does that number stick in my head?
Close.
Okay.
Yeah, that was last year.
Okay.
It's now 126, which they've...
There was only...
I'm not going to say it.
I know.
Well, that makes me giggle too. Like, wait a minute. We only had 4 pups this year?
They said 122 last year, 126 this year. They said 22... This is what I don't understand. They said 22 packs last year, 27 packs this year. Somebody's math is off. And then we have 15 successful breeding pairs, of which they have to rear and raise, I believe, four surviving pups, right? 15 so 15 successful pairs.
And so does that report say, like, how many of those pairs are in eastern Washington? How many are in
90%, 90-something% of those are on the east side, northeast, right? Where the problems are. Yeah.
Right. And that's what we talked about, is to meet that management guideline for, you know, the Washington Wolf Management Program. I mean, we have to get
3 zones.
3 zones, and I want to say
breeding pairs.
How many breeding pair for each zone?
I can't remember.
I think it's 4, but I could be wrong.
4 sounds right, but and that led us to the discussion of some are stating, well, let's take some of these wolves because we're getting almost to the point of overpopulation for this northeast region, and let's just take these pairs and put them here so we can say we have breeding pairs existing in all 3 zones, but that's not part of the management plan, so it's not going to work that way, right? So I just thought it was interesting to look at factual numbers of what they're now saying.
Such a hard number to track. I mean, I don't envy them. Like, the wolf is such a as far as human contact, such a solitary animal.
Oh yeah.
How to get an accurate count of that is, you know, it's crazy. We were in Idaho a few years ago elk hunting, and it was more than a few years ago. It was probably 10 years ago, but we were talking to the guy that was the president of the local chapter of Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and he brought up a great point that I think a lot of hunters don't understand when you talk about managing wolves with hunting. You know, at that point in time in the state of Idaho, I think there was like 400 or 500 wolves. And like he said, you know, how long have you guys been here? And we had been in Idaho for 11 days.
Yeah.
And he goes, now there's 350,000 coyotes. How many coyotes have you guys seen in those 11 days?
350,000 coyotes?
Right.
In Idaho?
That's what he said, yeah.
What?
And so...
How many did you see?
None. And he's like, and so you're hoping to see 400 wolves, but you can't even see a coyote out of this many.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe his number of 350,000 was wrong, but that's the example he gave us.
Kind of puts it in perspective.
It put it in perspective.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, we're hoping to manage these animals through just hunting alone and not including trapping or anything else, and that's going to be a tough task.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's kind of that way with all predators, though, right? It's not like you can fly over a herd of cougars and do a head count like you can with elk. You know, it's kind of a, I hate to use this.
I think it depends what town you're flying over.
Well, yeah.
Bellevue, you know.
Hey, no, but the, you know,
wilderness cougars,
it's almost, for lack of a better way to put it, and I cringe using the phrase, it's almost a wild stab in the dark.
Yeah.
You know, what do they say? What are the number we've heard for the last few years on black bears for the state, man? I feel like it's way undershot.
Yeah, it varies.
Because it's, you know, it's one of those
well,
things.
again, you know, we're going to keep on top of, I mean, all weekly. There are stories, news stories, there is information coming out every week relative to predation issues in this state, whether they walk a foot or swim in the water. So we just kind of keep tracking it because it's relevant to what we like to get out and enjoy and do. And it's relevant to the fact of their inability to manage our resources and our, you know, fish and game. So we'll just keep on top of it. And, you know, it's fun reading, right? So what the heck. Jason, can't thank you enough for coming in.
Yeah, man, thanks.
I hope you enjoyed it. We got some food in there we got to eat. Shing's been holding that steak for us and got that other food she laid out there early before the show. So for folks following us on Facebook, you may have saw that picture of all that food she puts out each and every week for our guests coming in. So, you know, if you want to be a guest on the show, just hit us up on Facebook. I don't know, spread it out to 100 of your friends to give us a like, and maybe you qualify, something like that, right?
You don't even have to get paid around here. The food is enough.
Yeah, we'll do a contest. You just come and hang out at the show, watch and eat and have a beer and enjoy the festivities. So that's going to do it for us this week here on Fish Hunt Northwest. We'll be back next Thursday, both on our YouTube channel and Facebook. But until then, during the week, check us out on Facebook, interact with us, post your pictures of you know, animals you've acquired if you're so inclined. You know, we love dead fish pictures or live, you know, the old grip and grin release, whatever it is. Food pictures, absolutely. Post some recipes that you enjoy doing, and it may even spark interest in Chef Kelly. Maybe he'll give one of your recipes a try. So you got a whole week to interact with us, get that stuff done. Jason, thanks again for coming in. We'll see you all here next week on Fish Hunt Northwest, Thursday night, 6 p.m.